Continuing with our lead story today, Anthony Scaramucci is out as White House Communications Director less than 2 weeks after taking the position. We're back with our specialists, Ann Coulter and Alan West. All right, I wanted to ask you, do you have any idea who would be a good replacement for Scaramucci, or at least the qualities that they would have to fit in a structure like this?
Wow, that's a pretty big, tall order. You know, I think it has to be someone that is really going to be able to bring an entire staff's message together, that someone that can work with the cabinet secretary, someone that can work with the policy people, and someone that can get the trust of the president of the United States of America to say that, I can deliver your message so that you don't have to wake up in the middle of the night or early in the morning and get out here on Twitter. We can do this thing. We just need to have your trust, and that can be delegated down to them. So I can't think of any person by name, like Ebony said. If it was easy, everybody would want to do it.
Right. Well, and the trust thing is huge. There's been so many leaks in this White House. I think the one really big thing that Scaramucci had going for him is that President Trump did seem to trust him. It's going to be hard to find someone like that, right? I would think.
Perhaps that trust was misplaced, given that crazy interview. I'm not seeing as much chaos in the White House or the messaging as the rest of you are. I mean, Trump, to explain a lot of the firings, he didn't come from the world of politics. We always say we want a non-politician in the White House. Well, you got one. He doesn't have a party behind him. Both parties were against him. He doesn't have a Heritage Foundation or AEI that he can choose from. He's, a real estate developer in New York. So there will be a little sorting out. But I really think, I don't know. I mean, I guess you have to feed these lazy bums in the press something, but I think Trump should just hold a press conference once a week. No, I mean the ones in the White House briefing room, and it's ridiculous. They just, walk 3 yards from their room into, and then transcribe and yell the questions at the White House press secretary. I think Trump should do it once a week. He'd come down in a half an hour, and I think he is a great spokesman.
Maybe that's what we're getting, though. I mean, think about that for a second. And I agree with you, Ann. I don't think there's as much turmoil as if you listen to a lot of the networks will say it's blowing up or it's crazy, because Reince Priebus resigned, right? As did Sean Spicer, resigned. General Kelly got Scaramucci's firing or resignation, however you want to call it. Meanwhile, President Trump hasn't really changed. He's not really changing his message. He's still tweeting. He's still talking. He's still making his deals. But maybe he is the best messenger for his message. Maybe it's not. Remember, you have to have, look, here's who the two you have to, if you're going to be Chief White House Communications Director, there's 2 people who are putting input, actually 3, the President, but also Bannon, the Chief Strategy guy, and your Chief of Staff. That's where it comes, and then you go and deliver the message at the press briefings, to the press and whatnot. And maybe it is. Maybe it's just the 3 of them. Trump, Kelly, and Bannon get together and say, here, whoever it ends up being, Ann, go out there and deliver this message.
That's real slick what you're doing there, Eric Bolling. You know what? I don't think it's a question that President Trump is his best messenger. Absolutely, I agree with that. I think the benefit to me of General Kelly in this is he's not a showy guy. He's going to be kind of the opposite of what we saw from, our friend Anthony Scaramucci, this two fish that don't stink, me and Trump. It's literally the complete opposite of this. And correct me if I'm wrong, Colonel, I get the impression perhaps it is the military culture and background that says maybe it's better to not kind of be seen and heard in that way, and really just stick to doing your job in a way that lets the president shine, and we certainly know that he enjoys that position.
Absolutely. The Chief of Staff enables the success of that commander, the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States of America. He's not the guy out there making headlines, but he is the guy making sure that, what is your guidance? What is your direction? And he makes sure that the staff understands that and it's implemented properly. And I think that this is going to be a good course correction for this White House. And I know that there's some people on other networks that talk about it's crazy, it's dysfunctional or whatever. And I agree with you. You have a person that you took, not too far away from where we are, and you put him into a position where he's the leader of the free world. He is the Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces. He's the head of the Republican Party. He's the Chief Executive Officer of our federal government. Those are 4 pretty big hats. Now, the thing is that how do you channel people to get you to understand what are your priorities? And, sir, what are your priorities? Because if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. And I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to know exactly what this president's going to be focused on.
Can I throw a name out there? And I know, listen, he's going to be on the show tomorrow, but I would tell you that Corey Lewandowski understood the president's message and delivered the president's message, right?
He said,
No. No, I don't think, no, and
Be
that's not
careful
a
because
slight.
he'll be on tomorrow.
I was gonna say, it's not a swipe at Corey. I think Corey is incredibly effective at his job. I just think at this stage in the game, I think the people that kind of got President Trump to the position in the White House aren't necessarily the same ones that need to, like you were talking about, Colonel, get that agenda pushing, that policy component as a big piece of this. And I think Corey, like I said, fantastic at what he does, but that's a different element. It's a different lane.
who says there'll be just one more? Maybe we'll have a whole
Might have a
bunch
few.
more.
Yeah,
Maybe
well, I
about
think what
15 or
Once a
20
month.
more. Yeah.
Here's what Corey's advantage would be is, I mean, it seems to me one way the Trump administration has maybe not been served well is by following Paul Ryan's agenda. Trump said he'd repeal and replace Obamacare, first day, but he left it to the House and the Senate to figure out what that replacement was going to be, and leave it to Paul Ryan, Republican Speaker. It was a complete unmitigated disaster. What Corey is good at, also. With all due respect to the military, these generals just seem to want to go to war on 4 different fronts at once.
Well,
that was not
I
the
got to
Trump
push back
agenda.
on you. I got to push back on you there. When you look at someone like General Kelly, who lost
Not
his
Kelly.
son, okay, we who have been in combat don't want to rush into combat because we know they're
Usually, I know. Well, that's why I prefer corporals to generals, because, I mean, a bunch of them, not to mention a bunch of the members of my own party, Marco Rubio, John McCain, and Lindsey Graham, seem to want to go to war in Syria, Russia, North Korea, and I followed that whole Trump campaign very closely, and the idea was not that we were going to remake the rest of the world and screw America, and that's what Corey would be good at. Though I take your point, but reminding Trump these are the issues you got elected on.
Oh, fair enough.
I agree with you about the war thing all the time. I loved that about President Trump and the campaign.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, just remember that.
Yeah, but let's also remember that the enemy has a vote. So you can say whatever you want during the campaign, but when you show up and you're sitting in that chair, there are different decisions you have to make. We have too many despots, dictators, and bad guys out there. And eventually, you're going to have to take an action against them.
And you have different information, obviously, once you're in the Oval than when you're just,
Absolutely.
coming on a campaign issue.
All right, well, coming up, the House Judiciary Committee is requesting a second special counsel to investigate